where you can see, my hope is that you're seeing the You're Hired Now What, your first 30 days. And this can be out. The next slide that we're about to go to is actually going to be talking about a 90-day plan as well. And so with that, for those who are full-time, it's not necessarily that you're going to have to pack all of what we're sharing within the first 30 days. You might have a little bit more time as you're continuing with your onboarding process, might be a little bit more detailed with that. So this is something that I would say in that 30, 60, 90-day time frame, depending upon how long you're with your employer, that you'll be able to work on these things. But I think before we go for any further, really what we want to say is to give everyone a quick virtual high five. You're here because you did it. You put in the work, the hours, all of your hard work and studying. You did the resume writing, the job searching, the interviewing. For some of you, maybe it was you were able to have a few experiences and have success. For others, perhaps you were really just hitting the ground and hitting the pavement hard, and we want to celebrate that with you. So you've gotten that opportunity, but now really we want to say, and there's more. In some ways, while you may have felt like you just crossed the finish line, if we're doing a race and we've hit the ribbon, we've crossed the finish line, whew, we've got the internship, we've got the job. Good news, bad news is you're actually already right back at the starting line as we begin this opportunity. So no pressure with that, right? But we just want to make sure that we're hopeful that through this presentation, we're going to help give you some positive things to be working on, that if you're starting to panic, that you can take some deep breaths and decrease your stress. And that we can also hopefully give you some actionable items that you walk away with today that will help you as you begin planning for those next, for the next adventure. So what's the plan before and beyond? This is an exciting, well, wait. Yeah, okay. This is exciting for you. We're going to be talking about kind of doing some good detective work. What can you be doing before you even go? So yes, there can be some pre-gaming that happens before you start your opportunity. We're going to talk about building and understanding relationships and how this is an opportunity for you to do more than just kind of show up. We want you to be making the most of the next perhaps 12 weeks that you're working with an employer. And with that, then, but not only building and understanding relationships, but also encouraging you to set some goals. And not only like, I hope I have a really great internship type goal, or I hope that I hope I'm on the right team. Not hopes and wishes, but really talking about some smart goals to set. We'll talk about some quick wins we hope you can identify and celebrate, and then some contingency planning as well. All right. So the first thing we want you to start thinking about already before you begin your experience this summer is to start doing some detective work. And in some ways, this is what you have the most experience with already. This is, you do research, you've got homework and learning and asking questions and finding answers. You, as an engineer, are a problem solver. And so this is going to be helpful for you to have these skills and important as you begin to adjust and implement the next 30 days. So as you're thinking about, well, how do I do that? With that, we're going to encourage that when you start a new job and there are many things you're going to be learning, it might feel that sometimes like there are waves crashing in on you with all of the information that's being shared, that you do one of the things you may actually find yourself doing in your classes, taking notes, right? So not just about the basics of like, who are these people, but remembering their names, considering for certain people hosting informational interviews with them, taking notes. Now, you don't have to be like always taking notes, writing down everything everyone has said. And I would also say, if you're going to, some of you might be more comfortable using a pen and paper, which to the person outside who you're taking their notes from, they can clearly see you're taking notes. For others of you, you might feel more comfortable that maybe you have Google Notes. And so you're going to grab your phone as they're talking and start typing in the notes that you're wanting to remember in that meeting or in that one-on-one. And I would just encourage you, if you're using your device, to maybe even make a note, especially in that one-on-one, or if you're having a meeting, not with a group meeting necessarily. We don't have to announce it, but for us to say, oh, I'm just taking some notes on my Google Notes or something, so that they recognize that they don't end up accidentally thinking that you've tuned out and that you are texting someone or that you're not paying attention to them, but that you are in fact paying attention. You're trying to remember all the things. So that will be something that I think is kind of a pro tip in a way, is making sure that you are, while we want to keep those note-taking things handy, if we are using a device, we want to make sure that we're remembering that. Now, with this, sometimes the note-taking or your remembering your names, building your connections, it's going to maybe be easier if we're in person. But I'm curious, and again, I'll have you guys throw this in the chat if you don't mind. I'm going to pull that up so I can see it. If you could give me a plus if you are going to be in person for your experience this summer, and a minus if you know that you're actually going to be virtual for your experience this summer. All right, a good mix. So with that, thanks for sharing. There is a possibility that you're going to be, for some of you, it's the reality that you're going to be virtual this summer. The hybrid will be interesting as well, but I think we can still, it's helpful if you can find out ahead of time what channels or processes are being used to maintain communication in your teams, so that if necessary, you can maybe learn up on it, upskill a little bit before you even begin. Many students, for example, that I know are very familiar with Slack, but if we just pretended that you didn't know that platform for a moment and you found out that the team that you're going to be working on, that they used that all the time, that would be something that ahead of time you could be looking and gaining some information and learning more about that platform before you even got in. For others that, I think we've had the advantage of being virtual for a year, that we're probably familiar with quite a few things. Many of us, of course, are familiar with Zoom. You might be familiar with Microsoft Teams. But again, it would be a fair question to ask your hiring manager if there's any software that you need to be familiar with, as you will be virtual. It'd also be helpful for those of you with interns to be asking, again, thinking in the terms of the detective work, to be asking if you, will the company be providing you material for you to be, a computer for you to be doing your work on, or do you need to, are there certain things you need to download onto your own personal device? Those would be some important questions you could be asking as well, if you haven't already received that information. All right, so relationship building. This is going to be a key piece we're going to encourage you to build. First of all, you can do that before your first day. If you've already met your team through interviewing, you could potentially be reaching out to them on LinkedIn and connecting. It would even be fair on LinkedIn if you wanted to make a post saying that you're really excited to begin your upcoming internship with this company. Those would be fair things that you could be doing. And with that, figuring out, so you can start building those relationships now. We want you to also I'm going to show with you next kind of how you can be mapping relationships, potentially finding a mentor with the company that you're with, and also, of course, the importance of first impressions. It's helpful if you've connected with me before, for example, in advising, and I'm sure if you've gone to some of our other programming or other advisors as well, you may have heard when we were talking about the job search process, for you to keep this kind of like application tracking spreadsheet where you were tracking the jobs you were posting, you were kind of keeping, it was your one place where you could keep all of the career search content in one place. And the relationship map worksheet, which I'm going to show you in just a moment, I would say is somewhat similar. This is an option. This is just, it doesn't have to be this way for you, but this is one way where you can keep all the people straight. You might be great at remembering names, or you might feel like I always forget names. So one thing that can be helpful that's kind of just a tip is that if when you introduce, let's say that I am meeting Matt for the first time, that he might say, oh, hi, nice to meet you, Lauren. I'm Matt. I'm going to say back, hi, Matt. Great to meet you. Restating his name is going to hopefully kind of put a little bit of a key, jog my memory of who he is. Now, I know myself, and I know that maybe the first couple times I'm not going to remember his name, but I can create something like this worksheet, where later I might go back and say, okay, I met Matt today. Was his title. This is maybe we talked and I learned about the team he's on. Maybe he's on my team, so I'm going to share that more. I'm going to talk about okay, the connection that was, was it an important connection? Maybe he's a fellow intern, and so we're going to maybe be working on the same team. We're not sure yet, but the relationship importance there, we even have a scale, so I can keep in mind, all right, Matt, maybe he is a fellow intern, and so maybe it's a 1 because he's on a different team, and so he's good to know, but he's not necessarily in my circle that I'm going to be really my team that I'm working with this summer. But if, let's say that I meet Jessica and she happens to be my manager, well, her relationship importance might be a 5, because I have to make sure that I have a strong, good, open communication with her at all times, and that I'm being intentional about that. And then also notice there are some action items. So it might be that I'm either going to say, okay, with my manager, we're going to set up weekly meetings and I need to make sure that I do that. Or for Matt, maybe as a colleague, I'm going to say, I'm going to try to do lunch with him just to kind of to learn more about what are the projects he's working on, to be able to do a good job learning more about those additional projects and more about the company. All right. Now, again, with my remote workers in the group, you can still begin mapping these relationships before you begin working. Emails can often hold clues to understanding how people are interconnected. You can also, again, if you have access to the IM for your work group, that can be helpful for you to kind of put the pieces together. It's also fair to ask questions, so you don't always have to make assumptions. Remember, you are new. We are kind of very much in the first few days in this detective mode, trying to figure out the culture, trying to maybe figure out who is connected to who, and do I go, if I have questions, do I go to this person, or am I going, where am I going? So that can be helpful. And again, that map might be even more important in a virtual setting for you to remember who is who, because we're not necessarily seeing their faces all of the time. With that, I'll also encourage you to make sure that when you are on meetings, that you are turning your camera on, so that your team members can begin to see you as a person and not necessarily as this Zoom box, right? You're fine this evening. You don't have to turn your cameras on, or maybe you don't even have the accessibility to do so, and that's okay. But I would encourage you, as whether you're in person, and maybe you'll still be having some virtual meetings, or again, if you're virtual, that you're connecting. Communication also is really important regardless of where you are. Ask the questions. Just as we say in an interview process, your questions can highlight your interest. Your questions can also, a manager would much rather have you ask a question and for you to be able to move forward in the process of the work you've been given than sit there and for half the day not do anything because you weren't quite sure what the next step was and you weren't quite sure if you should ask the question. So don't get stuck. All right. So you've achieved the one big goal. You have the job, you have the internship, you've accepted the position. That in itself is a process for many. And so now what we don't want to do is make the mistake that everything else is going to fall into place. It is not your HR manager's job to necessarily continually provide you with professional development this summer or as you're continuing your career. It is your job to continue to set goals for yourself, reach out to maybe some additional colleagues, and continue to build your knowledge base. In order to make the most of this new opportunity, you do want to set some clear and motivating goals from the very beginning. So with that, again, I mentioned this earlier, our goal should not be to have an amazing internship. My goal should not be to, you know, get, have a great 30 days. The question then is, well, how do I set these goals? And if you see kind of, we have specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. And if for nothing, then for those that you're in Grainger Engineering, and we're all about the acronyms, these are what we would call SMART goals. Maybe you've heard of them before, maybe these are new for you, but again, keeping in mind that these are the pieces that we want you to watch for. And so what I'll say, because I know we're kind of running on time as I am paying attention to time, this worksheet, it might be fair for you to just jot a few of these down. What do you want to achieve professionally in the next year? Or what is it that you're wanting to achieve professionally in the next 10 weeks? What does professional success look for you right now? What professional milestones are achievable in the next 1 to 2 years? For those of you in the full-time roles, maybe it's including a new title, a new certification. And where do I really see myself in 5 years? Now, I think there are so many of us that due to COVID, we're like, whoa, hands off on that question. Who knows? But again, what do you need to learn or achieve to get there? And thinking of those. And for those of you, maybe it's not 5 years for my interns. Maybe it's, well, where are you hoping to see yourself in the next year? And what does that look like? So thinking about those, thinking about your possible action steps, those are going to be some key pieces to consider. Again, for personal goals, it might be, what are the most important personal goals to make time for during your first 90 days? I often hear from interns who are like, just the flip of schedule, for example, for many, they're like, well, I go to work, I go home, I eat dinner, I go to bed. And then I go to work and I go home and I eat dinner and I go to bed. So what can you do personally? What's a personal goal? Maybe it's that when I get off of work, I'm going to go to the gym for 30 minutes, or I'm going to go work out for 30 minutes, go for a walk every morning, or I'm going to, professional goals might also be for you that you're going to set at least one lunch with another colleague every week. And even for those of you that who are virtual, it would be fair for you to invite someone to a virtual coffee. And maybe you only maybe you are just overwhelmed with the project that you're working on. And you're like, oh, there's no way that I can do a lunch every week, or I've got other things going on. I just need to take a break. Then take that lunch hour to take a break, but maybe set up 15 minutes and just, have coffee. Cheers. And be able to learn more about, like, what do they do? Ask those questions, learn about the different roles that are there. I see we've got some things going on. Just checking my chat really quick. I see a few things. Okay. All right, so quick wins. So we've talked about learning, but I think that we want to remind you, of course, that while we're saying, what I don't want you to hear necessarily is to do like the work has just begun. Like, yes, kind of the work has just begun for you. That's true. But we also do want you to kind of ride into the kind of, a win builds momentum, right? And so making sure that you're reminding yourself you were hired because the company believes that you're capable of being productive. They want you to start making a contribution as soon as possible. And so one way that you can, so with that, they want you to be part of their team because they feel like you have promise and that you have the skills that they're looking for. And so if you're in a meeting, I'm going to say we as a collective, we for ECS, to make sure that, first of all, if they're giving you a task, that you do the task that's being asked of you, and that you don't lollygag with your task. Again, being cautious that you're not on social media too often. Recently, actually ECS as a team, we were part of a professional development workshop where the speaker was talking about how there are certain apps you can purchase for your phone. So if you have a tendency to pick up your phone and you get easily distracted, there are apps that will encourage you to not pick up your phone. Of course, if you happen to be someone who you're like, oh, I need to do that, and then suddenly you're off in a different direction and you're losing your focus, that maybe you have a thought drop box. Maybe it's a piece of paper, notebook, that for the other things that are popping into your head that you also need to do, you can put them there, but then that helps keep you staying on task, so that as you're able to talk with your manager about updates that are progress that you've made, you're really able to show some forward progress. Again, if you're going into team meetings and they're talking about the project and you have an idea, it's encouraged that you speak up. You might have a really great idea of something for the team. And then with that, it's okay if the first meeting, maybe you do more listening. Listening is a skill in itself. And so making sure to really listen and not necessarily listen to respond, which might sound random, but sometimes we have a tendency that as someone is talking, we're already trying to figure out what we want to say next, and we end up not necessarily really listening to the person. So listen, and then from that, take a moment to collect your thoughts and then share your ideas. All right, now, as we're wrapping things up, another thing that I want to encourage you to do are several of the things that are on the screen here. So one, throughout your time, either in your internship or in your full-time position, we want you to be intentional to build a portfolio of your best work. For some of you, your best work might be that for the summer, you're working on one key project. But as you are doing things, maybe it's that you are collaborating with a team of 15, and maybe it's even a global team. Those are some things we want you to start writing those things down, so that as you're ending that experience by the end of the summer, you kind of have these thoughts, or even perhaps these well-orchestrated bullet points to be able to then lay onto your resume. So that's going to be something that if you keep track of the work that you're doing, that's going to make it easier for you to be able to talk about what you did when we're putting it on the resume, and then ultimately into maybe perhaps an interview as we're having conversations. That really flows right into the next one of keeping your resume and LinkedIn profile updated. If you haven't yet shared that you're going to be interning for a company, or that you're joining a new company, that would be something to do. Again, throughout your time with the company, continue to network. Meet new people. Don't eat lunch alone if you can help it. Put yourself out there and get to know more people. Stay engaged within your professional community, online community. So I know there were a few that were saying that they were going into full-time. Perhaps that's joining those national organizations now and staying engaged with that community. And then continue to manage your personal brand online as well, your personal brand and / online presence, and continuing to do that as well. So that's a lot to throw at you in the first 30 minutes. And so I'm going to ask again in the chat, maybe, and you'll be asked this again, but just curious, of all of the ideas we've talked about, perhaps what's the one thing that you feel like that's something I can do in my next 30 days? This is something I can do. And if you're like, I'm not sure, here would be some ideas. Maybe it is, I can reach out to my hiring manager and I can find out if there's any particular software that I need to be familiar with. Relationship mapping. Thank you, Ariana. Setting goals. Remember, Matt, that make those. There we go. The SMART goal, Jessica. So yes, Matt, I'm going to challenge you to do that as well. Maybe a SMART goal is that I am going to set a weekly lunch with a different team member each week. And if I'm a team of 6, well, not counting myself, I've got 5 weeks potentially right there of lunches. So keeping that in mind, and then that gives me that I'm time bound. I said my team members, it's realistic for me to be able to do that. It's measurable, all the good stuff. So keeping that in mind. Yes, networking through LinkedIn is a great option. Reaching out to others to learn more about the organization, that can even kind of be in that informational interview, or even the lunch, which is a little bit more casual, but you're still learning more. All great things. The other thing I will encourage for those of you that are coming back to campus in the fall is just please stay connected with ECS. Some of you may be coming back with returning offers, and we are happy to talk with you through that offer negotiation strategy. And also make sure that you're aware of offer guidelines. And so we would love to continue that conversation with you when you're there. Otherwise, then finally, is additional resources. You know, you've got Handshake, ECS, of course, big interview as you continue, perhaps even to just keep your interview skills fresh, because you might have those exit interviews later on. And again, keep in mind too, ECS, we're open and we're here. We're available in the summer. And so whether it's anytime during your internship, if you have questions that of just ways to navigate a situation, we're here to help and would welcome the opportunity.
We can pull that up. Okay, I think we should be good. Hey, how's everybody doing? My name is Vishen. I am an alumni from IUC ECE class of 2014. I've been working in technology for the last 6 years, and along the way, I kind of got interested in personal finance, and I actually have started a company called Capital We that does financial planning for people our age, because money is very complicated. It's been a weird year, and this is the main reason I want to give this talk, is that we had a lot of things that happened. COVID happened. The job market was very weird. So something similar happened in 2008 when the great financial crash happened, where people that graduated into the workforce were basically were getting paid very low compared to what they would have otherwise gotten paid. And that salary gap never really closed. There are ways that we have to be sentient or be aware, and there are steps that we can take to mitigate having this problem, considering we're also graduating or interning in a market that's kind of along the same lines. And obviously we want to just have these as good best practices so that we are financially free, as most of you said. So the first one is obviously having an emergency fund. So it's a fund that you use for emergencies, simply put. So basically the expert advice there is we say set aside about 3 to 6 months of monthly expenses of whatever you're spending into just a checking account or easily accessible, so that you don't have to worry about job loss or a freak accident, or if your car got totaled and you have to you're waiting on an insurance payment, or any kind of thing that might happen that is unforeseen, basically an emergency. You want to put 3 to 6 months of money away, and preferably in a high interest checking account or a savings account, which is paying 1% or more. Right now, it's probably difficult to find, but you want to have it in a separate account so that it's earmarked to spend. 3 small steps on how to do it would obviously build it to 1,000, build it to 3,000 or 1 month, and then have 3 to 6 months. And this really is more personal because some people are more comfortable having more money in the account for an emergency, and some people are okay with just even 1 month. But I would say 3 months is probably a good middle ground. Where do we get that money from? It's easy to think that, okay, I'm getting paid $105,000, $110,000, and then you have taxes and something, then you want to live without roommates, and very quickly you find that you don't have any more money coming in. So obviously, very simply, let's build a budget, right? You want to build a budget in this bucket. So the most basic of budgets looks like this. It's about 50% for your essentials, 30% for discretionary expenses, and 20% for saving and investing. So the essentials would be your rent, utilities, your phone bills, your groceries, loans, payments, whatever. The saving and investing component is you're building your emergency fund, making extra payments towards your student loans or other loans that you might have, putting it into the investment bucket. And then the last part is discretionary, which is obviously your eating out, your nights out, your days out, your lunches out, Spotify, YouTube Plus, YouTube Premium, any other impulse purchases that you decide you want or just want to treat yourself to something nice. All of those would be in a discretionary bucket. Now, it's important to note that this is just a rule of thumb. Obviously, if you're in California, you're going to need a car, and that would come under essentials. And if you're trying to live in New York, then a car is very much something that you're going to end up throwing more money into because you have to pay for parking and pay for space and pay for shade and pay for extra insurance because you live in the city. And at that point, it just becomes a hassle. So really think about, when you're creating a budget, be deliberate about what is actually a need versus a want. Something like your new laptop or phone might actually be a discretionary expense versus an essential expense. And that's something that we want to think about. Any questions so far? Okay, I'm going to move on. One of the things, if you're international, and I learned this very late, was that you need to work on building your credit score. I only got my first secured credit card the day I graduated, and it was a bad idea because I could have had 4 extra years of credit history. And over time, that really, really saves you money because you end up paying less for anything that you would take either as a loan or as a credit card in case you miss a payment, or on mortgage rates. As you can see on the right, we have a difference of almost about $50,000 on $150,000 home. Now, if you double that or triple that, if you're buying a house that is 4 times that, you're almost saving $200,000 on the cost of the home over a period of 30 years. And all of that you can take and invest instead. It's always better when it's invested. In case you don't know how to start building your credit score, I would recommend getting something called a secured credit card, which I know Discover offers it. And you'll probably get approved for a $500 limit, and try to put small transactions on it every month and use that to kind of build your score. And once you have a credit score available, then it opens up other options in terms of creating additional credit lines and things like that. Now, speaking of graduating or having an internship in COVID, one of the important things is knowing your health insurance, right? So this is something that either you have to elect. The simplest thing that I would say for this is, honestly, consider being on your parents' insurance till you're 25. Most places actually allow this. It saves you a bunch of money, saves you a bunch of hassle, gives you some more buffer room to learn about insurance. I did not have that luxury, unfortunately. So I got thrown into the deep end of the pool when I had to elect a health insurance plan. But if you're looking at it from a very high level perspective, there are 3 different types of health insurance plans. One is HMO, one is PPO, and one is HDHP. The HMO is basically one where you have a gatekeeper, and that is basically you have one point of contact who's your PCP, and then they are recommending doctors to you. So anything happens to you, ideally you would have to go to your PCP first, get a recommendation from him or her, and then go from them, and then go to the doctor that they recommend. Now, the nice thing about it is it costs less, either from deductibles or whatever you pay monthly. It's a good choice if you have a tight budget or you think you're going to be relatively healthy and you don't need to see specialists often. The other option is you don't want somebody who's gatekeeping you and you just want to be able to go to whoever, and that would be your PPO, which is Preferred Provider Organization. You can go to anybody who is within the network of doctors that your insurance company works with. You end up paying slightly more on a monthly basis out of pocket, and your deductible is slightly higher, which means that the total amount of medical expenses in a year that you might expense that you would have to pay for fully is a little higher, but it's obviously more flexible. You don't have to worry about taking 2 appointments to do the same thing that you would have otherwise done by going directly to the doctor, or be able to like have just more options. The last one is the high deductible health plan. This one is what I'm personally on. It's a pretty cool plan because it is something where you say, okay, I know I'm a fairly healthy individual. I'm okay taking a risk of spending a lot more per year if I need to. So rather than out of pocket of, let's say, $4,000, it's almost $8,000 or $9,000, which means that if I have bills up to $9,000, I cover 100% of them, and after that the insurance covers it. So I've taken that because I feel like me, my family, we're all very healthy, and we don't foresee a major accident or any kind of emergency that we would need to fund. But in case we do, we have enough money to fund this. The nice thing is this comes with something called an HSA, which is a cool feature where they basically let you set aside money from your paycheck before taxes into an account, and you can use that money in order to pay for it. So what you would otherwise pay $1 in post-tax money, you end up paying $1 in pre-tax money, which you don't pay tax on it. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully that made sense to everybody. Yeah, this is good if you don't anticipate a lot of healthcare costs. The next thing, obviously, is if you're going to have an employment agreement with somebody, know your benefits package, because really, depending on what's hidden in there, you might end up having a lot of things that you could make use of, right? So if they sponsor your gym membership, or if they're paying for food every day, if they cater food, if they are doing tuition reimbursements in case you decide to do additional classes, or you want to take something else completely unrelated, if they're able to fund a portion of that for you. If you have a pet and you want insurance and they're able to provide better rates, or they're able to have life insurance for you. Or best case, they have employee stock options or shares that they're able to provide you and that you're able to buy. That gives you a lot of upside. I know some of the bigger companies tend to have 10% discount price on their shares. So immediately you're able to make 10% on your money. And depending on this, you can derive at least another $500 of value from the benefits package. So really, really spend time looking at it, reading over it, and figuring out what works for you, and kind of keep that in the back of your mind when you are reading your offer letter and your benefits package. So over the duration of your employment there. First big question outside of that is, should I pay off my loans? I know, and as a financial advisor, the question is always, it depends. A lot of people don't like having debt hanging over their head. That is not a bad thing. Personally, I would say if you know how to leverage it, you know how to work it, you know how to work the system well, it is very useful, in fact. But some people just want to sleep better at night. They don't mind paying a little more in the short term. They feel like they're just be at peace. If you're that kind of person, I would recommend scraping together all of your money and paying off your student loans early. The other thing is okay, you're okay paying the minimum required payment that they have, and you feel like that money is better used elsewhere, or you're okay living under debt, basically owing somebody. It's perfectly fine to be paying off your loan per schedule. The rule of thumb I tell people is if your loan rate is less than 4% or less, you're better off making the minimum payments and just investing the rest of the money into the market. So obviously now investing. What is investing? It's not Dogecoin. It is not GameStop, but there are a lot of other options that we have that are tried, tested, true methods for you to invest your money. And now, why is investing important? Investing is important because with any healthy economy, they're printing money all the time. And so we have something called inflation. How long is it normal to have to wait before your options vest? Good question, Jared. It depends. Unfortunately, it really depends on how your company's contracts are structured. Some of them would have anywhere between, they usually have a vesting schedule of about 3 to 5 years. And again, they have, sometimes they have dual vesting clauses, which is something that I found out yesterday, depending on, because if they're not a public company, they might need a couple of events to happen in order to be able to vest your options. So unfortunately, it depends. So with investing, we have inflation where the government is printing money and your money loses purchasing power over time. So you want to have your money invested or working for you such that you're making more money over time. It's the best way for you to retain your earning power. If you look at the triangle on the right, we're talking about least speculative places to put your money all the way up to most speculative places to put your money. Usually everybody should have a core portfolio that consists of stocks, bonds, cash, and other alternatives like Bitcoin and things like that. Alternately, being the age that y'all are, maybe you want to invest in yourself and either do a startup or you want to invest in a friend's company, things like that. Definitely look into doing it, but don't ignore your core portfolio of securities, which are stocks and bonds and things like that. Stocks are more volatile, but they tend to have better return. It's better for people in our age group to kind of invest more heavily in stocks. The rule of thumb is usually, I would say, take your age and that percentage should be in bonds. Rest of it can be in equities. So if you're 21, you want to put about 20% in bonds and the rest will be in stocks. I want to emphasize again how important it is. Even if you can start with $100 today, start today, because your money that you put in today is going to earn you more over time thanks to the power of compounding. If you look at this chart, it shows you by starting a contribution of $500 monthly at 22 and starting a contribution of $500 at 32, you see how much money you lose. You're almost losing half of your potential earning. And even if you say, okay, I don't have enough money, I'm going to catch up by putting extra money, 10 years down the line, even if you put $750, it's not even going to touch $2 million, right? So please start early. And this is something that I wish somebody had told me, but I obviously learned it the hard way. Couple of other things. The 401k is, I know this, sorry, we have another question. Okay. Where would investing in REITs fall in the risk pyramid? Okay, so I'm going to go back to this. I would say the REITs, Jared, would fall somewhere between stocks and bonds because they're ETFs, which means that they own multiple stocks or multiple real estate properties. But they're a little more stable because they pay you monthly. It's somewhere between stocks and bonds. So 401k, everybody's heard of a 401k. I don't know how many people know what a 401k is. 401k is very simply a tax deferred plan, which means that you contribute money towards your retirement. It's basically an account which is saying, okay, you want to fund your own retirement, and this is a tax advantaged account that you can use to do it. Usually this one is sponsored by the employer, which means that your company is teamed up with somebody like a Vanguard or a Payflex or a TD Ameritrade to hold all your money in accounts over there, and you are funding it using your money that comes from your paycheck. Usually the limit is about $19,500 that you as an individual can contribute towards it. And then we have an employer match. Usually that's a 3 to 5% that they say they will match. If somebody tells you, okay, I'm going to offer you 103% of the negotiated salary, but I need you to set aside 3% of your salary in a separate account, would you do it or not? And I think the question is, yes, I would want 3% extra money if I don't have to do basically anything for it. And so if you have a employer match, always try to match it, try to put at least that much so that you have money in that account and you're earning that much. Now, 401ks are of two types. One is the traditional 401k, which means that you don't pay taxes now, and then you pay taxes later when you retire and when you're withdrawing that money. And the Roth 401k, which is you pay taxes on it now, and then you don't pay taxes on it when you withdraw money. Very simply put, they're just different. You're just paying taxes at different points in time, and depending on what income level you're at, it might make more sense for you to contribute to a traditional 401k versus a Roth. The way I remember it is usually if you're in a lower tax bracket, it makes sense for you to pay tax now. So invest in the Roth 401k if you're going to be around the $50,000, $60,000 salary mark. And then if you're earning anything higher than that, I would recommend putting it in a traditional 401k. Now, this money can't be touched. There's a 10% penalty if you withdraw it before the age of 59 and a half. But again, this is money that you're setting aside for the long term, so you don't want to be touching it. And ideally, you would just let it grow tax-free and then get those sweet numbers that I showed you in the previous slide. The one thing that I will say with the traditional 401k is that after a certain age, you have to start withdrawing it because they don't want you to take advantage of the tax-free growth in that account forever. Any questions? Oh, okay. There's something called an IRA as well, and this is something that not a lot of people know. So the IRA is basically created in case your employer does not have a 401k. You can still contribute to an IRA as long as you earned money. This is something that you will have to go to a Vanguard or a brokerage and open on by yourself. So basically it's self-sponsored, self-funded, and you can contribute up to a maximum of $6,000 or how much ever you earn. So if you're earning more than $6,000, you can contribute up to $6,000. If you're earning less than $6,000, you can only contribute up to the amount that you earn. It comes with certain eligibility clauses because if you earn more than $125,000 as a single individual, you might not be eligible. But it has the same structure. They have a traditional IRA and they have a Roth IRA. And then with the traditional, you're not paying tax now, but you pay tax on withdrawal. And with the Roth, you don't pay tax. You pay tax now, but you don't pay taxes on withdrawal. Cool thing about the Roth is that you can basically contribute. You can withdraw your contributions after 5 years. So basically, if I put in $5,000 today, it's grown by 3, 4, 5% in the next 5 years. And then at the end of 5 years, I can actually take out 5,000 in case I want to. And I can use that money to do whatever. And I don't have to pay any taxes on it. Any questions? I know these are very big concepts, so feel free to ask questions. Okay. And then the last thing here is just if all of this is overwhelming, try to find somebody who you can work with, ideally a financial planner. A lot of people have actually said that it's too complicated or they don't have enough time or they don't have anybody that they can trust. And so there is a network of people that are out there that are trustworthy, that are not trying to fleece you. They're usually fiduciary and fee-only advisors. So you always want to look for somebody who's fiduciary and fee only. Don't go for somebody who is fee based, because fee based people can still sell you things from which they make commissions. You want somebody who is serving your interests. And obviously, you can work with somebody if you are feeling overwhelmed or you want to optimize where every dollar goes. And obviously, your time is valuable, so you want to let a professional take care of things. I would recommend that you see like a financial planner at least once a year, so that you avoid making painful financial mistakes. And over time, we are able to get you a better return on your investment. Okay. Jessica asked, should a Roth IRA be done individually, or a company that I work for should also get involved in the process? So an IRA is an individual retirement account, Jessica. You don't need to have an employer get involved for that. That's something that you as an individual can go and open. Okay. Some of my resources in case you want to start your journey. We have stuff on YouTube as well, so you can go look up stuff in case you decide you want to do it yourself. But yeah, here are budgeting apps, net worth tracking apps. I have a free calculator on my website in case you want to check it out. You can use TurboTax to fill your taxes. If you're looking for an advisor, I recommend going for XYPN or Fee Only Network, where you can find an advisor. And then if you have any questions, you can reach out to me.